And she's now going to be doing her proper teacher training in September. So, it's all kinds of people we have on this. And I'm delighted to say my guest today is a man who was born in Bangladesh, has called the West Midlands home for a long time. Aftab Rahman now lives in Les Halles and is hoping to spend today celebrating Eid. He's coming here, which I think is a big ask, actually, to come in on Eid. It's basically coming in on the big party day. And you've come in to meet me instead. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Just a bit of correction. I grew up in Les Halles.
Oh, you did grow up in Les Halles?
I grew up in Les Halles. My family still live there, but I now live in Acox Green.
Okay, but it's all Birmingham. I know they're different. They're very different places, but it's all Birmingham. You're a Brummie.
But Les Halles is where I feel most comfortable.
Is it?
Yeah, when I walk up and down the roads, I meet lots of people that I've grown up with and so on. So it's clearly home. Acox Green is where I reside in, but Les Halles is home.
Well, thank you for coming in on Eid as well.
That's okay.
Looking resplendent. What are you going to be doing later?
Going to visit my brothers, then my sisters, nephews and other friends and family, and just lots of eating and drinking tea and coffee. So it's a day of really nice relaxation, and luckily I've got my daughters with me who both look splendid as well.
I just caught a glimpse before. Both look absolutely beautiful. Again, dragging them in. You're having to drag them in on Eid to come and see me. We do appreciate it. So you came to the UK age 6. So what are your memories of growing up in Les Halles from 6 onwards?
Oh, God. The schools are the first memory. The primary school is the first memory. And I remember the sunshine. I remember the really embarrassing things like not having PE kits. So back in the day, they'd make you do it in your white fronts. So, I mean, those are some of the things that come to mind.
Was that not having PE kit because of money or just because of knowledge, or?
We weren't a well-to-do family, we were like many other Bangladeshi migrants at the time. We didn't know about PE kits, and also that was extra things that not everybody could spare funds for. So eventually we got PE kits and so on. So yeah.
Were you good in school?
Not really. I was a naughty child. I was a naughty child, and the thing is, I didn't believe in myself. My parents didn't think I was very clever. So as a result, I left school with no qualifications at all.
What age?
I left at 16, tried my hand at becoming a mechanic for a year, but I didn't like getting my hands dirty and it was cold and so on. So I gave that up within a year.
So you really were sort of made to think, well, I'm not going to, not much is going to become of me.
Yeah, I mean, as a young Bangladeshi person growing up in the 80s, if you were a young girl at the time, you would have got married at 16, 17 or 18 at the very latest. I mean, my sister was married at 16. So for the boys, you could end up working in a restaurant on a part-time Friday, Saturday night as young as 13. I started when I was 15 as a waiter, and the career path was quite set, really. If you spoke English, you'd be a waiter. If you didn't, you'd be a chef. And the other options were you could do YTS. At the time, it was YTS, youth training schemes. So it was really easy to be a waiter because all your friends did it. And I did it for a couple of years and I got fed up of it. I thought, no, this isn't my calling in life.
And what did you do then?
I started to volunteer in the local youth club, Les Halles Recreation Groups in Les Halles, which was still is opposite my mum's house. And I started volunteering, and that was my calling in life. I set my life goal at 19, and it was to help. And that just grew and grew. I became a part-time youth worker. I volunteered initially. I worked for the council. And then I went on and did a degree in youth and community work at the age of 23 and came out at 26.
What was that moment like when you graduated?
It was phenomenal. It was realization that, actually I'm quite clever. And that happened before, in fact. When I went to uni, I'd do half my dissertation and share it with my lecturers and say, am I on the right track? And they'd talk me through it. And eventually I came out and I think it was equivalent to a 2-1 degree. So, okay, not super academic, but not bad either.
Yeah, better than not bad. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So when was it that you decided you wanted to work in youth services particularly and help young people? Did you always want to also specifically help members of your community and diverse communities in Birmingham?
It started off with the Bangladeshi community because that was my lived experience, and we were the last of the South Asian cohorts to have arrived, and we got a raw deal. We got picked on. I mean, I didn't want to start off with racism and Paki bashing and all of that was the norm growing up, but I didn't want to start with that. And then, you got harassed by Caribbean young lads who would take money off you and so on. And then as we got older, it was Pakistani community who would pick on us quite a bit. So we went through all of that as any new migrants come in to settle in and find your space.
But it felt like you were bottom of the pile, really.
We were bottom of the pile, and the reason I did what I did, was to, one of the main issues was that our parents didn't understand us. Their part of growing up was in a village, right? And that was their point of reference in Bangladesh, and our reference was Lazals and the streets and an urban environment. So it's confusion for everybody. There was trauma on both sides, and I wanted to be the bridge for parents and young people, and I did that for a long time. But whilst I started off with Bangladeshi young people, it expanded. I worked with everybody for the last 30 years.
And Legacy WM was established in 2010. You're the CEO. It does some incredible work, doesn't it? With lots of different people. It does.
And just to demonstrate, about 4 weeks, I think, we erected a statue along the canal in Winson Green to celebrate Windrush. And it's a 3-meter statue, and it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I'll invite everybody to go and have a look. And it's a layered statue with when the Caribbean community first started to arrive, the Windrush, the nurses, the bus conductors. So it tells a vivid story of the contributions made by various minority groups.
And that must be a moment as well, to have got to that point and to be so much a part of it. Because, we have still got a lot of problems in society with some of the things you're talking about, but we're more open maybe about talking about certain things.
I think we are. Listen, in Europe, the best place for a person of colour is England or the UK. In my view, I've travelled around, and you hear the experiences. So, we're allowed to be ourselves, and we live in a city now where the minority is a majority. Yet this isn't reflected in the power structures of the city. All the big institutions, the BBC, the council, regional organisations. It's not reflected, and
do you think it's changing?
Not fast enough. I think there's a lot of lip service, and if people are really, really serious, I think we need some positive action to say, you know what, within this period we will get 30% people from the global majority. I think we need to be serious. And the other thing is, the corporate sector is better at getting it right because they know diversity is good for business. However,
and they move faster often as well.
They move faster because they're driven by profits, and they get it. So if you look at school stats and so on, the Bangladeshi and other minority groups are doing much better than English young people. So you kind of think, well, that's got a story in itself, and then if they're bright, they should be given opportunities in the same vein.
You have been awarded an MBE.
Yeah,
that's a moment as well. But I know you had a thought about not accepting it because, and this has been talked about quite a lot recently. That word empire in there.
Yeah, I have to say I was deeply, deeply conflicted. I nearly never took it. I spoke to people around me, very close people around me, and they said, Aftab, you actually deserve it. And my daughters, I spoke to them, and they said, well, what would your father want? And you kind of stop and think, well, actually, it means a lot to them. And it means a lot to the community that I've grown up in and my family. It means a lot.
Would you have been as conflicted if it wasn't for the word empire? Or would you have been conflicted generally because it's coming from, an establishment, etc.?
Look, I'm British. I'm British Bangladeshi. I'm part of the establishment, whether I like it or not. But if it was changed to excellence as opposed to empire, I can live with that. Empire has a legacy of blood, which, yes, I'm part of that. And yes, the people who committed all the atrocities are no longer alive. But I think it's a word that we all need to grapple with. Those days are done.
And maybe with, this change in, I don't know, the monarchy, that will be looked at, you'd think.
Well, I've written a blog, and part of my blog says that maybe I'll have a word with the king if I'm allowed to.
Have a word with the king. Well, yeah. I'm sure he'd be very happy to speak to you. Yeah, I'm sure lots of people want to speak to you. After we've got to leave it there. It goes really quickly, but I'm going to let you go and celebrate Eid. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you. It's
Absolute
a pleasure.
Aftab Rahman on BBC Radio W.